Hey everyone, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host of Sales and Cigars. And my guest is Celina Shands. She runs a marketing agency called Full Capacity Marketing, and she's out in California. She's a huge Lions fan, Detroit Lions fan. She tells that story. She once challenged Michael Jordan to a one-on-one pickup game, and she tells that story. And she's got some great advice for folks who are running a company and trying to handle that remote, hybrid, bring people back idea. She's been running a company remotely for 21 years. She's got some great insight for everybody. We talk a little bit about inclusion. So go grab a cigar, grab a cocktail, strap in for another fun episode of Sales and Cigars. So Celina, appreciate you taking some time to jump on the podcast with me today. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Walter. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, it was in the green room, as we say. We started off by talking about the Detroit Lions.
We did.
So it wasn't my anticipation. So can you kind of share a little bit? You have no affiliation to the Lions from North Carolina, California. So can you kind of share how that happened with your friend Greg?
Sure. So, as a kid, I followed football. I was a big tomboy growing up, so I loved football, baseball, everything. And we had some family friends in the Detroit area, and we took a trip up there one year. I was 8 years old, and we went to the Silver Dome. Greg Landry was the quarterback at the time, so I'm really dating myself. But I remember going down near the field, and I was yelling out for him, "Greg, I love you, I love you." Of course, he didn't turn around, but just being in the Silver Dome, I watched, of course, Detroit Lions and Thanksgiving is, hand in hand. I saw Walter Payton run past me for a touchdown when, during the Bears and the Lions game. And it was just a lot of fun. So I've always pulled for them. I know they never win, but one day before I die, I know they're going to have a winning season.
Well, I think they're getting close. And like I said before, I think when that happens, they win a championship game or actually get to the Super Bowl, this town is going to go
Yes,
bananas.
and I just wanted on record here in this show, this podcast, that I have been a Lions fan forever because I can just see it. They'll win and they say, "Oh, you fair weather fan." So this is really good we're doing this, Walter. I appreciate it.
This gives you credibility for the last
It does. It gives me
last
street
few
cred,
years.
yes.
You've suffered through with everybody else, so that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your journey from North Carolina to being an entrepreneur, having companies. And didn't you play basketball too?
I did. I had a basketball scholarship. That's how I made it through school. Came from a, not a wealthy family by any means. Alcohol, kind of tumultuous, very, in the deep South. And my sister really guided me, and she saw that I had athletic prowess, got me into a little private school. She went and got her worker's permit, put me through school, and I got a really great education and an opportunity to play all kinds of sports, and then eventually landed up with a basketball scholarship.
Awesome. And how does that? I mean, to me, college sports. I didn't play college sports. I played in high school, but to me, that's it's something special. Not a lot of people can say that, but there's a lot of leadership that comes out of that. Does that help you in your entrepreneurial journey?
Absolutely. Because of my family upbringing, it's like I had to look outward to mentors. Obviously, my sister was my biggest mentor. In fact, she's still listed in my contacts as Sissy Shiro. She's unbelievable. She started her own company. Yeah, she's like, if you can dream it, you can be it. But she didn't just say things, she really led by example. The other mentors in my life, though, were my teammates, my coaches, colleagues, because you really learn how to work as a team in a sport environment. And I'll tell you, as an employer, if I'm looking at two resumes side by side and they're both equally matched, and I really like them both, I'll pick the one that has a sports background because there's something you really learn in that environment. So it's just a wonderful outlet.
Is it the reason you give that the little bit of an edge? Is it competitiveness? Is it the
Yes, I
teamwork
think
part of
it's
it? What?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. And also, you have to play through fears. You know, you're down 15, 20 points. Do you give up? No, you find a way to come back. And business is like that as well. You have setbacks, right? So
Sure.
instead of saying, oh my gosh, we're down 15, 20 points, how are we going to win this? No, you just find a way. And I think business is like that. You're constantly having to find your way in the market.
Right. I think I have that same sort of philosophy. If somebody is played, especially a team sport,
Yes, yes.
that's even more important than like tennis or golf or throwing a javelin. I suppose would qualify as that too. So, all right. So you didn't start off in marketing. Can you kind of give us a little bit of how that came about? Because
Yeah,
basketball
it's very
players
interesting.
go to marketing. So
Yeah, well, I was talking with my sister about it, and I always felt like there's a foundation of marketing, business and marketing that I wanted to learn because I felt it was very transferable and applicable in any field. I didn't know what field I was going to go into, but I felt like, okay, I can apply this in any industry. So that's why I chose that one. What's interesting is that my master's degree is in sports medicine, and I think initially I thought because of the love of sports that I had, I was going to combine those two degrees, and that was my first company called Life at Its Peak, where I helped doctors build profit centers around adding sports rehabilitation to their practice. And when insurance laws hit and changed, then that business model was no longer profitable. The margins were lower. So I said, okay, as an entrepreneur, I'm going to have to reinvent myself. So I think the marketing and business background really gives a good foundation to help you be able to pivot because as entrepreneurs, we're always reinventing ourselves, right? Whether it's another company or even reinventing your company and repositioning it in the market.
and redefining your niche
Yes.
and trying to
Yes.
trying to get that really focused. Yeah, it's a. I don't think you make a metamorphosis every time, but you kind of like just keep dialing it in, playing with the dials and the levers to get it so that you're changing with the market and you're changing with the needs of the with your customers and clients and sometimes the economy kicks in and we have to deal with that too. So
Right, right. It's a constant, and it's nuancing too. I just went through a repositioning in my own company after 21 years. I had two offers to sell. In selling the company, I thought I was going to be retiring, and none of them felt right to me, even though they were giving me the asking price. And now I know why, because I ended up hiring a new VP of operations, and we're completely adding another market segment to our company. So what we do is we work with those in workforce education and now our new market entrepreneurship in those sectors to help those organizations grow and build a relevant brand. So I'm like a kid again at age 63. Here I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to retire and go ride my horses and spend more time at the barn. And now it's like I'm all in. I'm like giddy again. So repositioning can be a really good thing. And you just have to sort of keep your eye on the market and those trends.
and finding the passion again to
Yes.
go after it,
Yes.
right? Because that's really what you're describing.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about the ideal customer, what that person looks like, what the company's like for your company. Like, what does that look like? How do they know?
Sure. So a lot of the reason I built the company to work with those organizations have a workforce or education mission is because I feel very strongly that if we had a world where everybody went to work and was happy and loved to contribute, what a wonderful place that would be, right?
Yep.
And there are many paths to that. Entrepreneurship is one way. College may be another, but there are also these short-term training programs and stackable credentials that people can learn skills to help them pivot during their, this environment. And the pandemic has certainly changed that in terms of more people looking to want to have their own company. I think the last bit of data I looked at, it was like 5.4 million people, especially people of color, were looking to build their new companies, be entrepreneurs, after COVID. So there are a lot of ways to get to your passion, kind of where you want to fit in the market.
I think that's a great little niche because Mike Rowe has a foundation where he helps kids, usually disadvantaged, that are to get to a school to become an electrician, a plumber, a mechanical
Right.
contractor,
Exactly.
and we need those people, and
Yes.
they make great livings,
Oh, they absolutely do.
and they go in without debt from college.
Well, that's it. College is not for everybody. So here's a quick story. One of our customers, which is an adult school, and a lot of people think, well, what do people do in an adult school, which is publicly funded? Well, it helps immigrants learn English, adult basic education, and these skills that you're talking about, which we call career education, because employers are hiring in that. And so one of our customers, this adult school, recently shared a story with us where, we're helping them build their brand so they can attract these underserved and underrepresented populations. A woman came in, she was homeless, she was living in a storage unit to obtain, and she got her high school equivalency. They found her a laptop. She went on, learned more schools, got some stackable credentials, and today she's earning over $60,000. So it's like, to me, when I get these stories and I hear these stories, and that's the whole part of our work, is building these brands to attract these folks in, it's like, that makes so much sense to me. Right here, you've got someone who's living in a storage unit. Just think about how that changed her life. And then you have others who are in that situation, and they have a dream of having their own company. So there are many ways to get to where you want to be in life, and it does not have to be a 4-year degree. I chose that mainly because I had a scholarship, but then I saw, I wanted to go on and do something else, so I needed those skill sets. But really, skills is the name of the game, not degrees, skills.
Yeah, and hard skills and soft skills both.
Yes, yes.
And I probably shouldn't admit this on the program, but when our daughter, we sent her to International Academy, which is a school that's really prepping someone for college. And, if she didn't want to go to college, I would have been fine with that. But if she was a boy, I would have actually encouraged him to not go to college and go get the skills to go do something, have a skill, learn a trade that is meaningful, and then go open up your own business, at some point. And, you're an entrepreneur, you're female. Did I make did I make a mistake there? Is that from a female's perspective? Because I struggle with that, right? She's an equestrian, and she rides, and she wants to own a rehabilitation barn for horses.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, except we got to pay for that. So, but so going to college, there's some significant value there, but
Absolutely.
but is that just I'm not sure that I'm being, I don't know if it's racist or it's just the wrong way to look at it, but she could have gone and been an electrician or a plumber. It wasn't really her desire. I don't think 4-year school is a college degree. You learn how to get along with people. You learn how to deal with a system that doesn't care about you, for the most part, at least where I went to school, and just navigating the world on your own for the first time. I mean, that was most of what I got out of it.
Yes, very interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't think there are any mistakes in life. I think you take a path. If it's not the right path, you course correct, because it's like, okay, my heart's not with this, right? So I'm gonna have to change and morph. That's I think in the DNA of an entrepreneur. So I don't look at it as a mistake. I think there's huge value in a 4-year degree and a master's degree. Obviously, I have one, or I would not have pursued it, because it does open doors. It does teach you skill sets. My message is, it doesn't have to be like that that pathway for every single person. And there are publicly funded schools and even like community colleges that have AA, degrees and certificates and things like that. And in this market, employers are looking for skills. And so while those degrees can certainly open you up, and there's all kinds of data that shows the more education you have, the higher your earnings are. However, that to me is in a traditional role where you are going into a job and trying to move up the corporate ladder. For me as a woman, that was not easy to do. So I didn't like the glass ceiling, so I built another house. It was like, okay, I'm not going to have people define my worth. So, but it's also just what you're saying. You could learn those skills and then go and open up your own company, right? Some of the most successful people just have a high school equivalency, you know? So I think part of it is really finding out who you are as an individual, what makes you tick, and what you're happy at. Like I never feel like I'm working, right? I may be tired from long hours that I put in, but I love the mission of the company. So that's what keeps me sort of energized. And if you pick a path just because society tells you you need to be on this path because you're a male or you're a female, I don't think you're going to find your happiness. It's like what makes you tick and then go from that point.
Yeah, and it goes beyond passion. I think, having something where you feel like you're giving back
Yes.
to a community, something bigger than you. And I think the generations after ours, that's become even more important for millennials and Gen Xers and Zs and all the other letters. That they want to get paid, of course, but what's really important is that they feel like they're part of something bigger than them, that they're able to learn, they can see that path. And sometimes that's entrepreneurial, and sometimes it's just being part of that company. And it doesn't have to be a Fortune 500. It can be a smaller organization where you have some huge impact. And that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think, in this market, I think building an employer brand is really important. Like, why would someone want to come and work with your company? And part of it, what the secret I have found is that over the years, the stories that come out of the people we are helping through these other organizations is what drives the folks that are in this company. Plus, they've had a path similar to me. I have folks in here who've been homeless. I have folks who have been on government assistance, and they've risen above the challenges. So when we go out into a market and try to attract those people, well, we are those people. We know them very well. They're motivators and that kind of thing, right? So that's why it makes it extra sweet as a motivator. But even, people that are in larger companies, and if you're asking me to take this piece of paper to my left and move it over to the right as an operational piece, I need to know why. And I need to also know why that piece of paper is important to our overall mission. And so the more leaders can constantly make an alignment between what staff is doing on a day-by-day basis and the mission of the company, and show them how they're contributing to that, that's what creates the stickiness in a company, for employees, because they want to contribute, just what you're saying. And so it's, as leaders, we have to constantly make that connection for people.
Well, and I think that's an important piece. The book I did is one of the things I think entrepreneurs make a mistake about. They have a great vision, they have the passion, and they're clear about what that vision is. But what they don't always do is connect it to the employees so that they know that how they can contribute to that vision, how they can see it through in their function, in their daily role. And it contributes to the success of the organization and the brand and the vision, but it also connects to the customer experience.
Yes.
And that individual's feeling of like, I really belong here, that because I get it, and I got to make a decision today that was impactful to not only the company and me, but to the other organization that we're working for. I told this story once before, but I worked for a manufacturer in a sales role, and the guy on the dock, right, the guy that put the boxes together and got them shipped out, been with the company for years, and everybody knew him, but they didn't really know him. And one day I was going out, I was like, all right, how's the shipment going to the company? And he's like, yeah, I shipped out all 50 boxes. And I go, there's 51 that was supposed to go. He goes, yeah, one of them was broken and damaged, so I held that one back, shot out the other 50, and I'll get that one out tomorrow morning. And I'm like, that's awesome. And he's, well, I thought you'd be upset. I'm like, no, they're not going to go put up all 51 boxes and one day. That's awesome. So I called the customer, told him what to expect, and he's like, "Well, Gary made that decision." Like, yeah, because he cares. He knows there would be more trouble to get it back and go, so he did the right thing. And that customer, to his credit, came back through a couple of weeks later, had a little box of swag for Gary from his company, showing his appreciation for the little tiny thing he did that saved everybody a lot of aggravation.
That's it. What a great story. And have a culture that empowers Gary to make that decision, right? And to trust him to make it. That also is a sign of a successful team, when you're allowing people to make those decisions.
And he was just like, he knew it was the right thing to do. And if
Yeah.
somebody got upset, they would have, he still felt it was the right thing to do. And I think that's a big piece that we need to share that with our employees. So let's talk a little bit about. I mean, you mentioned something in the green room that I kind of wanted to bring up about 21-year-old company, and you're re-energized with it, but you've been doing remote for 21 years. Is that right?
Yes, 21
Can you
years.
tell how you've been pulling that off, and everybody
Sure.
else is trying to catch up to you now?
Okay, you're going to laugh at the motivator for me going virtual, but when I started full capacity marketing, I was just moved to San Diego from San Francisco, and I was exhausted from moving. I fell asleep, and I had a dream that I had a cat named Sheldon. And I thought, this is the weirdest dream because number one, I'm a dog person. Why am I dreaming of this cat? Well, the next day I found out because I found a little baby kitty. Didn't look like the one in my dreams, but he was laying next to his brother who did not survive. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is Sheldon. This is the cat that I was named Sheldon in my dream. So I took the cat and I was like, now what am I going to do with the cat? I can't bring it to work. It had special needs, and this apparently now is by the way, the cat was with me for 19 years.
Wow.
So my motivator for going virtual was that I could spend time with Sheldon at home, taking care of his needs. This became my child basically. So what I found, and this was way before we actually beta tested WebEx. We were one of the companies that, on a virtual call, I was like, yeah, so we beta tested that with a company and everything. And so without all the technology we had today, it was very difficult. It was a lot of emails, phone calls with people, but it allowed me to recruit talent from all over the place. And to this day, I have people in every time zone, which is, when you think about it, is a very efficient way of working because you can put a project to bed on the West Coast. The East Coast team can pick it up and it can work its way through time zones. So it's a very efficient way. Also, the cost savings that I didn't have with overhead of an office, I could pass on and be more competitive in the market and compete against larger agencies, right? Because I was cost. Yeah, exactly. So no one really knew this. I mean, Sheldon, they'd be like, first it was just me and Sheldon was like filing my papers for me. It's like, well, who's your assistant? Sheldon, that's his name. And but now we have so many tools. So when COVID hit, we were like already, we use things like Asana for our project management, which everybody, is engaged. We have Slack, which is real-time communication between everybody. We still meet on Zoom and those kind of things. We have face-to-face and retreats at conferences and things of that nature. But I saw early on, Sheldon gave me the opportunity to have the work-life balance that I needed. And COVID is really showing up that, this experiment of working from home, people want more of it. They want more work-life balance. And what I have found is that if I set high expectations in the company, which I do, people have to get their work done and all of that. Now, fortunately, I'm a marketing and PR firm, so, not having a bricks and mortar does not impact. This wouldn't apply to people who have that bricks and mortar. But, it's really been fantastic because I give a lot of flexibility and leeway with people because some of them have children. They want to go to their kids' school play. Well, they should be able to go to the kids' school play or, if there's an emergency. So I don't care when they work. I care about getting maximum productivity out of it. And what I have found, that they do if you give them that leeway. So that's, the technology that's available now for virtual teams is unbelievable. So it's just creating that communication that you would have, but doing it online and setting expectations, but giving them work-life balance. I looked at a piece of data, I think the other day, it was from Harvard. Somebody looked at 500,000 job openings, and it was up to 12.2% on virtual job, postings that where you work some virtually from home. That's up 4 times since the pandemic. So it's like employers need to really think of maybe a hybrid model to work in with the culture. It's a new culture these days. You don't go to and plus, we're in a creativity field. I've never sat at my desk and said, I'm going to come up with a tagline, because I don't, you don't do it. I have to go for a walk in nature. I go ride my horse. I go, shoot a game of basketball, right? And then it's like, where I'm in the shower, it's like, oh, that could be a good tagline. So let people have that work-life balance. You're going to find they're going to be more creative, more productive. We got to let loose of some of that control and put in. I have very high markers for productivity, and so you got to have that. But the trade-off is they get the flexibility, and it works.
But what you said right out of the box, I think, is something that most companies don't do a good job of. Is that setting the expectation, having high standards, and I don't care when you do it, as long as it's done at this standard and it meets the deadline, right? You have deadlines that you have to meet.
That's it.
And it's hard to be a manufacturer and allow people to take the
Exactly.
piece of equipment home, but that's separate. And I do a lot of hiring for sales roles and sales only. And when I run into an employer who they need to be in the office, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Why? Especially for sales, because if they're in the office, are they doing what they really need to be doing? They should be talking to customers. So it's a conversation, I think, that I have with intent to really understand their motivation, and sometimes it's about teamwork, and their struggle with the ability to, and maybe you can shed some light on this. If they want that teamwork feeling, and they want to make everybody feel like they're part of something, and they want to give them this remote aspect, is there any tips that you might have for that entrepreneur that has maybe 15, 20 people and wants to give them that flexibility? Aside from the standards, how do we make them feel like we're part of this team?
Well, I think it has nothing to do whether you're virtual or not. I think creating a team is about people having a voice at the table. So if you're coming in as a leader and saying, this is how we're going to do it and blah, 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 and there's no input, then it's very much a top-down approach. I look at all the people in our company and it's level. It's level. Why? Because I value every single voice. So if I have, and I do have over 20 people, what we do is we break down into groups, and we'll have more frequent meetings, and we'll say, okay, here's the customer, here's the thought process around it. I may start the conversation, and I go, okay, poke holes in it. Tell me what's wrong with this, how I'm thinking, because I want us to constantly put ourselves under the microscope so that we can be the best. That does not come from me alone. I used to think it had to be when I first started the company. As a leader, I had to know all the answers and all that, but that's not the case at all. If I surround myself with people who have different types of strengths, who are diverse in thought and experience, that product or service is always going to be better. So, I get people to poke holes, and we're really good at that. We're very respectful, but we always are trying to be the best. And so when you create that culture, people own the process, they own the results, right? Because they're part of it. So I think you can have that conversation on Zoom, or you can have it in the office. But if you don't have a cohesive team, that might be something to look at.
Yep.
Get people involved in the process, like Gary, your story of Gary. He knew his work. He knew what to do. He didn't need a policy that comes down and said. He intuitively knew that. And I think as leaders, we have to ask our people, well, what do you think? Just a simple question. What do you think?
Yeah.
What's the problem? How do you think we should solve it?
It's when you think of DEI, I think it's backwards. I think the I, and I had a
Yep.
guest on a few months ago, who's a DEI expert, and that was her thing. That the I is what, if we started with the I, got everybody
Yep.
at the table, got them to be
Yes.
open and honest, got them to share their ideas, it would become so much easier to communicate
Yeah.
and to improve on. Like, here's my idea, like what you said was awesome. Like, here's my idea, now go poke holes in it. And then
Tear it up,
yeah,
throw it away.
and then as long as everybody's speaks in a respectful tone, which most people do,
Yeah,
especially when
absolutely.
they're looking at each other. It's if you're on social media, that's a little hide. It's easier to hide, but there's some really good tips there for our audience to be able to think about, engaging with their employees differently, connecting that strategy and that vision to their role, and being more open about how they can facilitate that vision and be part of it and add to it.
That's it.
At the end of the day, we need to serve our customers, and if we don't provide them with a great experience, it's really easy for them to go someplace else.
Yeah, I get more excited sometimes about the setbacks that we have or a contract we weren't awarded that maybe we spent a lot of time and energy on. But it's like, okay, well, how can we improve? Maybe that contract wasn't for us, but let's look at this as a team and go through the angles and just it's a constant learning about yourself and your own organization and and others as well coming together. That collective is really powerful.
Hey, thanks for being part of the Sales and Cigar community. I wanted to share that I wrote a book, The 7 Critical Mistakes CEOs Make with Their Sales Organization. The CEOs who've read it tell me I cut to the chase quickly, get to the point, explain exactly what they're experiencing, why they're experiencing it, and how to fix it. So if you want a free copy, go check out the link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the interview. Yeah, and if we lose an opportunity that we thought we should win, I've done like the ones that I thought that I was a good fit for.
Yes.
I'll let a little bit of time pass, and I'll call up that CEO and say, I'm not going to try. I'm not trying to change your mind. The decision's been made. I got it. But what I want to learn, I want to know
Absolutely.
what we missed or what wasn't right, or if it was something. And what's interesting is that feedback, where for me, it usually comes down to I didn't communicate something that I had heard, but I assumed everybody was on the same page. And it's that old adage, right, about assuming. And so, I when I lose that, I go back and I try to learn from it, and it's the same principle internally. Like, what could we have done? And not pointing any fingers. It's just like,
No, not at all. No, not at all. And that's, the power of creating a cohesive team is that, hey, we're all in it together. So if all the ideas, it's like, okay, well, we didn't quite hit the mark this time, but, we did our best, and that's all we can ask. I too have that policy of going back when we're not awarded a proposal, and I have the same thing as, hey, first I say congratulations. I'm so glad you found a company that you feel really meets your needs. That's what's most important, and I would just love to have an open conversation with you. How we can improve, just what you said, and it also helps build the relationship with that company, because then you may come back on another time and they went, wow, they were so gracious, and and it also gives you time to almost have one-on-one and build a relationship with them and clarify things in your proposal so that the next time around they have that in their memory, right?
and
Oh, okay.
we write a more clear proposal, or we add
Yeah.
something to it, or take something out that was confusing. Yeah, and I've actually had it happen where they proceeded down that path, and then 60 90 days later they call and say, hey, um,
Yes.
you still available? And like, what happened? And because you were gracious, because you were professional, you get it. Sometimes you get another swing. Not always, but every once in a while. So
Yeah, I'm a big proponent that the universe always has my back and that nothing passes me by that wasn't meant for me. So if I didn't get that, there was a reason behind it. Maybe it wasn't the project I thought it was going to be. Maybe it was going to be a big pain. Who knows? But I trust that and then just move on and then try to reinvent or improve.
I love it. It's great stuff. So uh, I have all your social and I have your website and I'll have all that in the show notes. But if somebody's like, I really need to speak to her, what's the best way for them to reach out to you with the info I have in here?
Yeah, if you want a consultation, if you're an entrepreneur, small business, whatever you need, just go to our website under the contact form and you can schedule a consultation with us. We'd love to chat with you. We're just launching a brand new part of our reinvention is we have what's called an EFCM learning hub for entrepreneurs. And we really take you through 10 modules and coaching and also refreshing your brand in the market. There's a package in there that will guarantee you 3 media appearances that are very high quality to kind of relaunch your brand in the market, reposition. A lot of cool things there, and that's going to be actually starting in just a couple of weeks. So people can just go and say, hey, I'm interested, and we will get to you and get you all the information you need.
So by the time this drops, it'll be live
Yes.
and active, and people can go right to that. So I'll have that
Yeah.
I'll have that in the show notes so people can go grab it. So last question I have, Celina, is past or present? Do you have a relationship with cigars?
That's a great question. Well, being an athlete, smoking was not in my repertoire. But I have to say that cigars really symbolize to me a celebratory feeling, success. We're celebrating the success. So I would say, while I don't smoke them, I can appreciate the symbolism of what they can mean. How's that?
That's good. I never get offended by it because a lot of people they're not like my wife can't stand cigar smoke.
Oh, really?
No, that's why I built a cigar room in my barn so that there's you know 75 yards from the house to where I have a cigar. She's tolerant. She gives me, I just have to be respectful.
That's your man cave, your cigar man cave. I have to say, you look very relaxed smoking one, Walter. So it's a
Well,
good thing for
but
you.
that's part of it. When I don't have that and I do one of these, I'm a little bit more. It's a good observation because I am more relaxed with it. It gives me something to do with my hands. To me, there's a celebratory aspect of it. And the other part for a cigar for me is sometimes creative, where
Yeah,
I can sit with a journal and a pen and a cigar, and it seems like my brain gets freed up because my hands are busy doing something else, and I can focus on the task at hand, whether that's an interview or trying to work through a problem or just thinking about something. It sort of helps. And then the other, I was just thinking about when you said celebratory and basketball. Whenever Michael Jordan won a championship, there's always a picture of him with a big
yes.
cigar in his mouth with his big smile, and he's to this day he still smokes cigars. So
My claim to fame is, and I don't know if Michael Jordan would remember this, but we're from the same hometown, and he was a high school senior getting ready to transfer to Carolina as a freshman, and I always played pickup games with the guys to hone my skills, and he was in the gym shooting around. I had never laid eyes on him, but I challenged him to a one-on-one shootout. And okay, needless to say, I was able to score 1 point during the game, like one. And I said, "Did you give me that point?" And he said, "I don't give anybody anything."
no,
And unbelievable athlete and competitor, but I'll never forget that.
that's a cool story. That's a really cool story, and that's his. I mean, that's why there's some of the other players on his team and other players they had problems with him because of his
Yeah.
high expectations and how hard he worked
Yes.
at it. I mean, yeah, he was
Yes.
a natural. It wasn't natural. He was a gifted athlete, but he worked
Yes.
hard at keeping his body in shape
Oh, he did.
and his whole exercise routine, just ability to jump a little higher and practice those shots, kind of paid off for him. He did okay for himself.
Yeah, he did all right. Yeah.
You're the first guest I've ever had who did a one-on-one pickup game with and challenged him to it. That's pretty.
Oh, I challenged him, and he was like, "Oh, you have the ball first." I'm like, "Oh, we're going to shoot for it." It's just like so like cocky, and boy, got schooled in a big way. And then later on, recognized him. I thought, "Oh my God, that's who I was challenging." It was like, what was I thinking? But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun playing basketball with the guys back then, and yeah, they schooling us. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, North Carolina is a big basketball. It's
Yeah,
not.
it is.
It really is. Indiana gets a lot of notoriety for its basketball, but North Indiana, but North Carolina has a lot of
Oh yeah.
successful. So you and Michael Jordan, I have to see if I can get him on the show. And I'll ask
Could be like, what?
if I get him on. I'll ask him if he remembers that.
Yeah, ask him if he remembers me. I don't. I mean, I doubt he will, but man, what an experience! Because when I watched him, from then on, it was like, holy moly, what was I thinking? But truly, he was. If you remember his story, he wasn't very good in high school, and then when Carolina recruited him, he had to really work hard. So it was in that in between time. He was by no means a superstar, and we played at different schools and whatnot, but still very fun.
Still a pretty good player, huh?
Yeah, he's pretty good.
All right, I really appreciate you taking the time. This was a fun conversation. Thanks.
Thanks, Walter, and go Lions.
Hey, thank you for being part of the Sales and Cigars community. I want to take a quick second to share that I'm doing a free sales hiring challenge this month. I'm going to give you everything you need to hire sales superstars and avoid the sales duds. Check out the link in the show notes to be able to sign up for free.